These pictures are for pencil or for watercolors?
Today pencil. We'll see what
Okay.
color today.
Because I have to catch up on our previous batches last two watercolor classes. I still have to do that.
Yeah, do it at
Uh,
later.
but I don't know. It's that that good girl syndrome. Oh no, my homework is done. Wala.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh shit, I don't know.
No, you don't worry about that for this class. There's no such thing as homework. So the thing with homework that I give usually for classes that uh, I've experienced this, that in the beginning, when I wanted to draw something or sketch something, this was years ago. I had the motivation, I had the materials, I had the time, but I had no idea. I had no clue what I wanted to do in that time. So when I started teaching, I started giving a suggestion that if you do have the time and motivation, then this is what you can give time to. Then whatever we've done during the week, give time to that. And that could be anywhere between 15 minutes to 2 hours if you want to do. So there's lots of additional art references that I will share on the group so that you can take your time and do that as and when. But it is optional. It does not have any bearing on the next class or the class after that or the class after that. So it's that's the one thing I
Sounds
said.
good.
Yeah, I said as an adult, this is not the focus of our lives, unfortunately. So there is 10,000 other things that we're supposed to do that take priority over what we really want to do. So I'm not going to let your hobby should not be something that you have to feel guilty about and also stressed about. Okay. Okay, so since this month we are doing different kinds of materials. Last week we did ceramics. So in this session today we will address shiny objects. Now, this is something that needs a little bit of study, not a little, actually a lot of study, because we often look at materials by their identity more than their presentation. So when we look at shiny objects, we look at gold and we say, okay, this is gold, or so and so thing is silver or a steel. But then in our heads, we are trying to translate it into that quality of its identity. So we will often find ourselves reaching for a gold color pen or a silver color pen and think that that is going to solve the problem. To a large extent, it does, but if you have the right shade of gold and if you have the right texture. So, for example, if you have, say, a gold band or as a decorative element on an object, and you use a very nice shiny gold uh, pen, or sometimes even like gilding, which involves a much more sophisticated process, then it will look exactly like gold because it is gold. But if you are making a painting of something that needs to look like it is a golden object or a silver object or a steel object, you can change how you see the details of everything in that reference image and translate it verbatim, color for color, shade for shade, shape for shape. And whether you like it or not, that will look exactly like the metal you want it to look. This is pretty much the truth for everything that we are drawing. But somehow, when it comes to flowers, you just see the shape and color and you draw it because there isn't this additional quality of brilliance or luminance or reflection. But when it comes to metals, it kind of stumps us a little bit. So today we're just going to do a bunch of sketching exercises. We won't even bother with watercolor today. In the sketching exercise, we will be observing and blocking these different shades and different shapes, and what's called a variety of tones in the right location and create an illusion of metal. I'm going to share the images on screen so I can speak about them a little bit. So here we have mostly white metal objects. This could be something like silver plating. This could be steel. This could be another, I guess, steel itself. I don't know what this yellow metal is, but this can just be a tinge on the grays. So we'll ignore this for the moment. Here again, you just have steel, and here you have regular silverware. So right now you're looking at it as a shiny object. But let's take this object for just as a sample. You can easily recognize a few things over here. We can draw this shape, right? So the shape is fairly simple. We will draw some, let me use a thicker line. We will draw some angular lines, and then we will have a curve. I'm also going to explain to you how to draw this a little easier. So shape is not an issue. Then if we look closely, we will see different shades. Let me just dump all these lines. If I look at it closely, I start seeing the different shades of gray. I will see, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what I did. Right. So you first notice the shiny parts. This is a shiny part. These are shiny parts. Then you will see the dark shades, and in the dark shades, there is a range of shades. So you'll have very dark shades like here. And then you will have some medium toned shades like these. So they're not exactly highlights over here, but they're also deeper in color. Oh, I can't see the end of that. See, these, they're not exactly as light as the highlights, but they're mid-tones, and there will be a range of mid-tones. So what we have to do is literally draw these shapes the way we see them in the place that we see them and color them the color that we see them. That's about it. It's broken down that easily. Okay, let's try another one. Here again, you will see the highlight. Usually you see the highlight first because it's shiny and intimidating. And then if you look at it closely, you will see highlights in a lot of places. You will see a really bright spot over here at the lip, a bright spot at the handle, a small sliver of a bright spot over here, so on and so forth. Then we will see the dark, 1, 2, 3, and then midtones. Right? So we are going to try to create one of these, but oh, I need to delete this. So let's try making that bell. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to first draw this object. Always start with some kind of basic shape like a circle or an oval. And in case of this bell, you can see some kind of oval shape here. With ovals, things can be rather tricky. Circles, they're slightly better because a circle is a circle. You can't mess with that. With ovals, you have to figure out what is the ratio of its width versus its height. So I'm going with the circle. I'm drawing a vertical and horizontal line across it. This is the vertical and horizontal of the circle itself. And this will give us some idea of the internal grid. So the bottom part, if we divide it into 3 parts, the top is just divided in half. I'll share this image so you can use this for reference. And then we can also look at extending lines towards the existing lines in the grid to know how far out does the base go. When you're drawing things like triangles, try to look at the clock face. So if I were to draw a clock face here, this would be 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So this line comes somewhere between 7 and 8. This will be somewhere between 4 and 5, and so on. That way you get a better angle. Otherwise, there's no telling how you will angle that line. You could make it too narrow or too wide. This at least gives you some estimate. Okay. Now, everything else also is part of the internal geometry. So say, for example, if I were to divide the top half into half again, so you get 2 parts in the top half, looks like the bell part of it is about the same size high up above the circle as much as about halfway down or a quarter of the way down the circle. So this distance and this distance is comparable. Get it? That's how I would recommend you start drawing. So often when drawings are made, they will draw a grid which is a very objective grid with specific measurements, like a 1 centimeter or 1 inch or whatever. And you can do that for things like portraiture or for landscapes. But if you're going to draw objects, every object can also have its own internal geometry. So in that, you use certain reference points on the object itself to give you distances and spaces and just build some kind of an estimate to draw a basic shape, and then you can detail it better. So the advantage over there is little by little, your eye starts seeing shapes and measurements by just eyeballing. You don't really need a scale anywhere. That makes your drawing process much quicker. Otherwise, everywhere you're going to carry a grid, a visual grid or a scale. And without that, you're going to be completely helpless. So I want to just avoid that.
So you showed us the circle and those lines, that's how we actually begin?
Yes, I'll show you how you can do this.
Okay.
I'll just turn on more lights. The purpose of drawing those lines is exactly that. You get to decide how you want to start the picture. And you start with those geometric shapes. Also, don't make it too big. Make the picture just about so much in a manageable size. So when you're doing shading, Your fingers don't need to move too large. So the first shape that you make will determine the proportions that you're working with. So you can make a loose circle with multiple lines, not just one circle. Then, let me just share the image so you have a reference of that also. The screenshot that I've taken. Yeah. Now, a circle is a circle. Length and width is the same. It has the same diameter versus if I were to draw an oval, it could be a flat oval or it could be a roundish oval. That's why it's good to start with a circle. Divide it in half vertically, make a vertical and horizontal line in the halves, and you can check if you have made it accurately enough. Now the bottom part, you can divide it into 3 parts. So take the center line and divide that center into 3. Oh, just 1 second. I need to take this call. Hi, sorry. Okay. So I've divided this into 3 parts, the bottom and the top I'm dividing in half. And this half will be the amount that I will extend on top for the depressing part of the well.
Is there any chance you can zoom in because it's very light?
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I just so you know that the size is only so large. Huh? If I zoom in, sometimes it might feel like I'm making a really large bell, but it's just about 2 inches or so. All right. Now, this is how we have established the internal geometry. From here now, remember how we drew that triangle? That just comes out so much. I think it's just a triangle that goes from the top to half to this horizontal line where it touches the circle, and then it extends outward. So it's a very beautiful proportion. Now, within this, again, you have the rest of the structure of the bell. So, while we have drawn the circle here, the shape of the bell goes outside of the circle about so much. And it's a little flat on top. And then comes down to the side. Then there is one part of the metal which goes through the center, almost like an equator. And this is all the silver part. And there's a lip that comes lower. And then after this, there's another lip that comes lower, but from outside the triangle, spreads outward. And then it extends down to this part, right up to here. So here you get to see this shape. Now, all these shapes are visible to us through the lines we have made. There's a vertical edge, an upright edge to the base. Okay, are you getting it? And then on top, we can make a circle to start with, which will give us the sides of this part of the bell. Make a flat top, a very thin disc on top, and then a plunger. So most objects you can find these shapes in, and you can draw them with these basic shapes in place.
I see a question.
Yeah.
So what we have done right now, with the shape, circle, all of that, and accordingly drawn the bell. There is a approximation in this, right? And going back to our class, the thing that in this, for example, the line, because we've done multiple, it doesn't look confident.
Yes, that's okay. So there is a difference between multiple lines that look confident and multiple lines that don't look confident. And most artists professionally also will draw multiple lines for whatever they have to draw. So if I were to draw this even without the grid, I'm never going to be able to get shapes like these accurately. I mean, I can because I'm doing this for a long time, but you can try to draw this shape. Let me finish this shape so I know what I'm talking about. This will come to you. It's not rocket science. But in order to get to this, if your process is drawing lines like these are the lines which are not confident. And this can be equated to training wheels. When you want to cycle, but you're not sure, you put on training wheels, and then you can challenge yourself and go as fast as you want to. But there will always be limitations. Now, the multiple lines that I'm talking about are lines which are longer. So they are not lines which depend on each other for extension. So they are not built like that. What they do is there's one line like this, then another line like that. So they help in reinforcing the shape. So I could make a shape that is like this with multiple lines. And then from that, I could chop off a few sections and make a shape. And I could arrive at this from different sources, different information. And yet this is much more confident than this line. You get what I mean? Okay. All right. Now, if you are comfortable with your shape, we will erase all these geometric lines. So keep the lines of the object intact and get rid of the grid. Now, in the process, if there are a few lines that you've already drawn that become lighter, that's okay. We have enough time to, and we are going to darken much of this. So this is still maybe at about 60%, I would say, of the shape that I want it to be, 60, 70%. But I need to make oh, I never sent it to you. I can now refine this by now looking at the reference image, the original reference image without the grid. And here I can now start building up the different shades and different shapes. So let's start with a dark shape over here in the front, which is about half the size of this bell. And from here you have a line, a shape that goes to the side. There's a dip, a little right of center. And then it goes around the edge to the top. And gives us a line coming towards the center where again there's a reflection of this bead. But it doesn't look circular. It is foreshortened and it just looks like lines. So just literally copy the lines that you see from the top, slightly flattened. There's no shape here. Until you are sure about how the shape is looking, you can make tentative shapes of and shade them where you know you can see that color. So like what I mean is, I can see a dark shape in the center of a certain depth of color and proportion. So I'm just going to create that. Then there's a gap. Then there's another one. And I'm not thinking too much about what it is. I'm just making it. The reason why you don't think too much about this is because if you do, then you get caught in the identity of that object. And you will know that this is the reflection of this bead from the top. If you know it and you see it as that, you will draw another bead exactly the same size and thinking that that is what it ought to be. But in reality, because of how the object is three-dimensional and and it is rounded, there is going to be a distortion. And for some reason, our brain cannot compute distortions. It perceives them, but when we have to draw them, that is where it fails us. Okay, so I'm making all these tentative shapes, and I keep looking at the reference image to make sure that my shapes are about the same proportion as what I see them on my screen. Now, at every stage, if you are adjusting your lines, you will first make the corrected line and then erase the wrong line. Try to do that instead of erasing immediately. Now notice how we have a very bright highlight in this section and a bright highlight in this section. So we have to, most places in shiny objects, you will see the highlights stacked one on top of the other if there are multiple parts of an object. So you will have this highlight stacked above this highlight. And if you're just following the placement accurately, you won't even have to artificially ensure that these highlights are stacked properly and one on top of the other. There's a thin sliver of a highlight right in the middle here. You can ignore that if you want to. But if you want to challenge yourself, like I tend to do for myself all the time, you can make a thin line for that shadow as well. As you start filling in details, the other proportions will start making more sense. Either you will be comfortable with the proportions you've made, or you will feel the need to make adjustments. So I already feel that the distance that I've left for the black base of my bell is insufficient. I need to increase it a little more. So in this case, I will first mark the spots where I want, where I see there's a change. This part is the upright part right below. Then this will extend even further. And then I have the base come even further or lower, about so much. But I have just marked this. I'm going to shade it later and figure it out. So I'm making the highlight in the black section, which will be gray. And then there's another larger highlight over here. So you'll notice that there will be mid-tones and dark tones. And in the mid-tones, you will have a range. The dark tones, you might have just one or two dark tones. The shinier the metal, the higher the contrast. All right, let's start shading now. Because there are mostly just 2 or 3 tones in this bell, I'm going to start shading the darker sections dark first. Usually I recommend building up that darkness, making it a medium tone and then going dark. But in this case, we can fill a dark tone. Whatever you do, don't press the pencil so much that you leave marks. That's why making a layered dark color is any day better. That way, if you feel you want to reduce, you can always make that adjustment by erasing. If you press too hard, you start making marks in the paper, and then you can't, no matter what you do, the pencil will have embedded into your paper. Then it's impossible to remove it. Within this dark shade also, I see that the top is a little darker than the bottom. So I'm adding a little extra shading over here. And while shading, I am perfecting the shape of the bell itself. Here the line is slightly slanted. And rounded. These exercises are excellent practice for pencil shading. When you come to the center, you will probably see an inverted image of the photographer and then if you're looking very carefully. That is unfortunately an inescapable truth about shiny objects that they will quickly tell you a lot about the environment that they are shot in. It's near impossible clicking a picture of any of these shiny objects without these details visible. Okay. I'm gonna quickly answer this one call also. My daughter is in distress while you all continue.
Is your bell looking anything like a bell? Mine is not.
I think it was looking like a bell before I started shading. No, it's
I
not.
don't. I don't know what is looking like.
Wait for it. करते जाओ, बस करते जाओ.
Okay, Livia, you had a question? Okay, sorry.
A bell is not looking like a bell.
Your bell is not looking like a bell. Oh, can I help you with that?
It's,
Let me see. Okay,
no,
forget.
I'll
I
need to
don't know what you
practice. Yeah.
Huh. At this stage,
So,
look at it as a bell also anyway. Just continue.
Arena classes, you said chuck the eraser. So I literally chucked the eraser. So I didn't have anything to remove those lines.
Oh
Now
no.
I have figured out something. I got.
Get a rubber band or something. Rubber bands work.
Oh, हाँ. नहीं ठीक है कुछ तो मिला है one very पुराना सा पड़ा हुआ.
Okay. But do pick up a flexible eraser like that. And also an eraser like this, a very sharp eraser, especially for these items, because then you can just take away a little bit at a time. Though I don't find this such a impressive eraser. I think it's good for charcoal. For pencil, maybe there's another one. But it still does
This flexible thing I haven't seen anywhere. Maybe when I come to Pune, I need to.
maybe. Okay, Livia is showing something. If you order online,
is there.
yeah.
Yeah, I got it from a stationery near me, but it's available online also.
Yeah.
It's from DOMS. Yeah.
Actually, DOMS also has.
I'll send you a picture. Pardon me?
I didn't know DOMS also has flexible erasers.
Yeah, it's quite good. It's quite
Okay,
good.
good.
So it does have this. The whole palette is there. This. Okay. Where am I? Yeah.
Yeah.
This.
Nice.
I've taken a small piece out. And the rest is in the packet only.
Good. Yeah, you need very little at a time.
Yeah.
So while we are doing these, between the picture that you have made and the reference image, are you able to see more subtle shades than are obvious? What I mean is, in this section over here, there is a little light or brightness over here. And this is like the second bright, and here there's a little shadow. So this almost looks like the ceiling of the studio. These obviously are those big lights that you have to light your subject. And because these lights are shining towards the center, you have a glow even seen on the ceiling. But this section of the ceiling is in darkness because it is behind the two lights. So if you do see things like these, you can add a little bit of an additional shade very lightly, barely visible. And even these little things do matter. So I want you to firstly start trusting what you see and try to see how what you see is making a difference in the picture that you are about to draw. Now the top part was fairly easy. We have all these shades in an oval shape. And then as you go to the bottom, the shapes start becoming slightly different. Now, from my personal experience, I prefer to just say that they're different instead of giving them any word that is going to make it sound like it's difficult to do. So don't say they're complicated. Don't say that I can't see whatever, because this is the critical stage. Sometimes you see the obvious very easily. And because that happens, the rest of the shapes then unnecessarily seem complicated. Now on the left, I see something that almost looks like a spade. So I will make the shape of a spade pointing slightly upward. And it's got one line on top and another line below that. Then in the shape in the center, it's almost like a Now, we can't escape the fact that these shapes are changing here because there is a dent. And the shape of the bell itself is changing at this point. So our line needs to be drawn from one end to the other, like this. Make this line first as a reference, and then based on that, the rest of the shapes will come much more naturally.
Concentrating on the picture and the drawing, I've made the lines one step below.
Oh,
Yeah, the lines are here, and I should have made it somewhere here, and I've made it one step below.
that's so normal, but it's happens all the time. So the shinier the object, the higher the contrast. And now you will probably appreciate even more why diamonds are so prized. Because actually you can look for some YouTube video on diamonds about how they are cut and how that increases the value of the diamonds. So I knew about this because we all study that in science, but I saw this documentary in which they showed how the right angle between two surfaces creates certain refractions, and then that bounces off internally. It's an amazingly complicated geometry or understanding what to cut where exactly to that I guess level or width or whatever shape, and allow for the light to jump from different surfaces. It is crazy. So if you take a picture of a diamond, look at the photograph of a diamond, and you start counting the different grays that you see, it is mind-blowing. Just the sheer variety of grays in a sparkly diamond looks just fascinating. I don't blame people for wanting to possess them so much. I heard someone say recently, we're all magpies. We love to collect shiny objects. I think it's true, one way or another. Shiny objects are attractive for a reason. Okay, now that the top is done and I'm examining, my base is looking quite terrible. So I'm going to erase some sections of the base, make it a little narrower. Now, while I have erased the lines, I still have kept a little bit of the residue of the lines because I need to build on that. When you have circular or disc-like objects, one on top of the other, this is like drawing bottles. You see the edge coming from behind it. So in this case, I will see this edge coming from behind, not joining over here. That's what will make this object look three-dimensional. If I were to draw this and then this, it will make these objects look more two-dimensional. Let me demonstrate this further. So I have an object that has a dome with a lip. If I try to draw the lip over here, it looks very disconnected. It will look like a dollop of something placed on a disc. But if I want to show that this object has a lip of its own, I have to draw a line that's almost parallel to the bottom edge. And this line will then extend behind the object. By behind, it just has to go a little higher up on the sides of this object. And I can keep doing this stack as much as I want. Here again, if I want to show these two on top of something, like we have the black, I will draw a line that is parallel to the base. When I come to the ends, I will lift the line up slightly. And then I will turn it into the sides of the object above. Now, conversely, if I want this to look like separate objects or discs one on top of the other, they will look like that. I will have maybe a liquid on top of a plate, let's say. The plate will have its own lip. And here, though it's gone above on the sides, there is no correlation between the curve of the object and the curve of the plate itself. That is why these two look like they're two separate items. Do you see that? So why I'm telling you this is because it may happen that once we've drawn the top part of the bell, this is done. In the image, it's not very clear how the black part comes out. And you might draw something that's the same size. And this will make your bell look like it is, well, it is still attached, but there will be, it'll look different from the reference image, let's say. It won't look like they're one placed inside or connected with the other. So I want you to notice that you go slightly above. Here it's very little, the distance that you go above to make the shape of the base. And then the line extends outward. And then it comes almost straight down first. And then goes around. And this could be parallel. And then round it off. Now again over here, depending upon the material, when we are making vertical edges, don't make them straight down like that. This looks very metallic. But here obviously the base is made of some soft material like rubber. So all your vertical lines also will change and become, these corners will become much softer. Now, I want to show you one more technique. I think this shading everyone will be able to do. I just wanted to show you one more technique of drawing objects. And for that, I will briefly move to one of the jugs. So that if you want to do this as homework, you don't feel intimidated. Now, I'm quickly going to draw the base geometry of this object. And I think you'll understand it. I don't really need to explain it much. You have a circle. Draw a line through the circle and see how far it extends. Vertical, horizontal, same distance as this seems to be the same as this. And this is maybe a little more than a quarter. So here I'm building the grid. Now for the neck of the jug, I can always draw a line at a to create quarters in the jug itself, extend this line up to give me an idea of how far the neck extends. Similarly, I can now look at this distance and this distance. This looks almost equal. I can see the top of the handle. How far does the spout extend? How far does the handle extend from the center line? Are you seeing these? Do you want me to explain these too much? I'll share this image. Okay. Now, I just want you to observe. You don't have to draw right now. Just observe how I'm going to go about this. I'm making it really small. Let me share the image first so you can keep looking at it as well. Okay, I have this. Draw a vertical line, horizontal line. Then just divide this in halves and quarters. So I get the next measurements. The neck is somewhere about here. Then spout comes further about so much. All these lines are there. You'll notice what these lines are for. Now, there is an odd shape of the jug itself. So I know for certain that the neck is like a rectangular shape over here. So I can make two vertical lines along the sides of the circle. Then I have a line that goes a little sideways of the circle. Then it comes more vertical. And then it comes down. So what I'm doing here is just making straight lines. I'm not going to try and make that very curved line. So this technique works very well for beginners because you can make a short span line. It's like just drawing any odd line. Then you can extend whatever shape you need to make to create all those with these broken lines. Again, this line is not the broken line like that. You make one smooth, straight line. These are easy to adjust if you feel that your shapes are not clear. Also, these are easy to see in the shape that you're trying to make as well. Almost like a geometric rendering of, or a Lego brick rendering of the shape that you want to draw, right? After you've done this, then you can draw lines that are curving between these shapes. So almost as if I give you a square, inside this you can probably round off the corners and make a circle much easier than if I were to ask you to make a circle freehand without these of a particular dimension. So here you'll be in a much better position to create the shape that you want. When you come to the joints, first draw, whenever you come to convex and concave joint. Now this is concave, this is convex. This is again trouble area. Bring the line right up to the point where you have this junction, and then you can quickly just make a joint over here. This, I have found that drawing symmetrical objects is such a pain because we look at the line as a whole instead of breaking it up into parts. Now, again, with the handle, it's pretty much the same. You will see an internal geometry. You will see a circle here. Draw the circle there. You know how far the circle has to go. We have a blue line drawn over there. How far the handle edge has to go. And you can make the same shape. You do a horizontal line here and then angular lines. See what clock direction you can use to come to. The line actually comes to this junction, turns around, and then there's a circular shape here. And you can continue, just make another smooth line out of it. And you'll be able to draw this much more easily than you would otherwise have imagined. Okay, and now the rest you know how to do, which is blocking out the dark parts and then drawing the light parts. So for the base, what I wanted to show you was the fuzzy edges. There's two ways you can do fuzzy edges for objects which are not very, very shiny. There is a lip over here. I'm just going to draw that lip also because it's, but I won't shade that part right now. I'll shade it later. So here I'm going to make this dark edge, but I'm making it dark only in the middle where I know it is dark. As I come towards the sides, I will reduce pressure a little bit so that the difference between the dark and light starts changing. And when I come to the line that I have marked over here, I will deliberately make my line much softer. These are necessary because otherwise we won't know that the material has changed from shiny to less shiny as we come lower. Less shiny objects do not have sharp highlights. Now again over here, I will make this a medium tone. And remember that there is another neutral medium tone over here right below also, where part of the base sticks outward. Oh, so you don't have to remember these things. That's all I'm trying to tell you. You just need to observe them and faithfully put them down on paper. Now, the other way of doing it is erasing. And I'm not a big fan of erasing, as is fairly evident by now. But in some places, I mean, I've had to learn to not reject the idea outright because it does sometimes make life interesting and easy also. When it makes it easy, I don't like it. When it makes it interesting, then it's good. I like that. So you can bring your shading very close to the line that you have marked, and there, using the eraser, you can just dab at the edge and create this softness. For that matter, you can use the eraser to create softness wherever you feel that there is a slight shine. Like for example, over here, just on top, there's a little triangular shine, which I can create by moving my eraser. I can also dab it a little bit in these sections to make it pop. In many ways, I feel sketching, pencil sketching, or this black and white sketching is like almost philosophical because you have to put aside everything that the object stands for or your identification with it and look at only what colors, shapes, and shades tell you. So it's sometimes even very mathematical, which is ironic. But like a pure mathematician enjoys the truth in numbers. The equations won't lie, or pure scientists. The evidence does not lie. It's exactly the same with sketching. I don't know if I can say the same with other parts, other kinds of art, because the whole business of art is to trick your perception. So in other fields, like if you're going to do abstract art, you are creating a different kind of reality through that. But pencil sketching is, I think, the only, or even realistic art, that tends to be more about how we see the world and how faithfully the artist has replicated that for us. Now, if we had a kit of those very fancy pencils which have everything from HB or H pencils, 2H, 4H pencils, right up to charcoal, we can make this illustration even darker and even more compelling. But in the absence of that, go to the darkest and the lightest of your pencil's range. And what you will get would be like an image of, if you were to click a photograph in olden times without high contrast, that is what you would get. But everything else should be possible. Now comes the detail. The top of the bell is very tiny. So the temptation would be to zoom into a photograph and see the details and draw it. That is always good, except when the details are so tiny that zooming in would just be more painful than anything else. Because then you get very frustrated that you cannot replicate. You can't zoom in your picture that you're drawing. So at that point, I just recommend don't bother zooming in. At your magnification, whatever you can see, however inaccurate or fuzzy it looks, just replicate that. So here I see some kind of trapezoid shape. I'm shading that. Then there's a gap. Then there's some kind of a horizontal line. Then there's a gap. Then there's some more shading. And the same thing on the right as well. And within that, there are some dark stripes, then some light stripes. So this is fine. And by the time you finish the picture, then you realize that even doing that much was enough. Now the last part is a very light gray color in certain sections so that they look different from the highlights. So these parts here do have some gray. And this gray is so light, you just have to touch your pencil to paper and move it back and forth to give a very halka color. If we don't do that, then the highlights won't pop out as much. And then from here, of course, there's that little shadow. Finish the shape from the outside. And there is a little bit on the, just at the bottom, which I just need to do. So the highlights in the rubber section also are slightly grayish. This one is a little gray. Now, the more you observe, the more details you will start seeing. And you can keep adjusting and making more and more gray spots or dark spots, changing the tone till you are satisfied. Okay? Any questions?
Right now, a lot, but I'll try it out once more, and then, like,
Okay, can I
it was
have
too
a
much
look?
today. I think it's scary now.
Let me, if you don't mind, if I can have a look, let me just assess whether what you're scared about, you need to be scared about. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're right now, it's the shape that has got you. It just needs to change a
Yeah.
little. Once your shape changes, you will find that it's much, much better. The bottoms that you've drawn, see this part, okay, where am I going? Yeah. So this bottom part is shallower, this will be rounder. And I think it's gone the other way around.
Yeah.
So it's looking
Yeah,
visually looking inaccurate. But shading wise, I think you're headed in the right direction because you've not shaded everything too dark. So you can keep building.
And I think that
think
I was asking about
mine.
drawing the lip. Yeah. No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I was asking about the previous
No.
class, so that's why. Okay.
No, go on.
I'll just
Yeah.
show you. I had this image, and how to draw these lips. I just get confused about drawing these lips.
Yes, I had to show you that. Let me show you.
Yeah.
I think before you go on to a different image, let me just share my thing also
Yes.
about this bell.
Yeah.
So I thought my pencil is sharp enough, but there are places where the shadow or the dark part is actually sharp, and my thing has the thing has not come so sharp. So it's sort of messing in my head because it made certain areas broader than it should have been in terms of uh, like on the top. I know it should have been patla, on the top of the bell.
No, I don't think that's a problem. So what you're seeing is just that the shapes are not as they should be. If you just look at the shape, it's not about how sharp the pencil is necessarily. It's just getting the angles accurately. So what you've done right now, if this is the first shiny object you've sketched, I think it's very good. It's a matter of being able to see the shape and draw it accurately in the right place and in the right context with the rest of the shapes that you make. That's about it. That does not come immediately. The shading part, I think you're doing pretty well. That's not a problem.
I think that shading feels a little eh.
Let me share.
But at least you got the shape right. Yeah, at least she's got the shape right.
Shape is pretty good, yes. So the overall
Yeah,
shape.
shape and proportions.
Yeah. But again, now these are things that it's good to know what to focus on. And again, with all shapes, with everything that we're drawing, it's about just bring it down to the line. How far do I draw the line? What angle I have to make it in? Where do I have to stop? And then once I have a shape made, the next shape, how large I have to make it? Where do those lines have to go? You have to be able to think in terms of the lowest common denominator, which is the line. Okay. And once you get that, and if you're not getting it, let's go another way. If you're not getting it, just look at that one line and its corollary or counterpart in the reference image. And just ask yourself, have I drawn it the right length? Is it in the right direction? What is the angle of the line? What is the nature of the line? Is it straight? Is it curved? Is it curved in the beginning? Is it curved later? And you can ask all sorts of questions to that one little line, and you'll get the answer within the first 2-3 questions itself.
And
So you're saying basically break it down, no? Like, don't go with a larger or the whole thing itself. Just break it down to smaller either sections or just like you're saying line wise. Like,
yeah,
does this line
and like
correspond
just
to
now
that?
I can't just now I can't visualize it. Will printing it out and drawing the geometrical figures on that will help, might help me out a little
it
more.
could help, but you have to do exactly the same thing. If you're drawing it freehand, whether you get your reference visually or whether you draw lines and do it, eventually you have to draw the line.
Yeah.
So you can give it a shot. I wouldn't say no to any technique that can make your life easier. So end of the day, you have to just keep drawing lots of stuff so
Yeah,
that,
just keep practicing, right?
yeah. So there are two aspects that I would like you to focus on. One is what you are seeing. Many times what we see is not what it actually is. Like I said earlier, when you see gold, you are thinking gold, whereas actually it's just a shiny yellow thing, where in that shiny yellow thing, in order for it to look shiny, there are certain brown things in it also, but you don't perceive the brown or the blue or the black, but you see it as gold because of the combination of all the colors and shapes in it. So that's one thing, how to see things in absolute reality. And the second thing is to literally just develop the muscles in your hand to be able to control the line. It is as simple as an infant trying to walk. You point them in a particular direction, they go fine. But otherwise, they do a lot of stuff that they can't get from A to B as easily as you think. That why isn't this happening so naturally? Because that it's literally the muscles that need to be able to be controlled. So in the beginning, when you're drawing, you are drawing things so consciously. You're focusing on the line, and it is a very involved process because you're trying to control. And the more you become, your muscles become well attuned to the activity, you won't even realize how easily you draw it. It becomes an unconscious activity. That is the place you want to go to. So your observation starts becoming keen also, and your muscles have developed also, and you start making everything better. Now, in order to do this, it is very important to realize that in some places you are already doing it. So in the picture that you have made, there will be some sections where you have seen the right tone in the right place, made it in the right manner with the abilities that you currently have. Because it's in a small amount, we tend to dismiss it. And we think that the journey is really far away. When you feel that, okay, if you want to go from Bombay to Goa, you're probably already at Satara. But you say, no, no, no. Every day I have to make my journey from Bombay to Goa, Bombay to Goa. But you are progressing every day. So I'm going to urge you to first identify the spots where you have got it right, because that is what you have managed to do well when your brain was conscious and drawing lines. And that is what you need to repeat. Forget about the stuff that is not working for you. That will come automatically. Okay. All right. So, Olivia, I'll show you how that lip is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've shared the image on the group?
No, I'll just do that.
Yeah, just if you could do that, then I have a reference.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything that has a hollow shape in it, there is a particular way to draw that. So if I'm making a circle and I'm making this is the head, the neck of a pot. This is the two-dimensional view. Now, each of these objects has a roundness to it. Let me spotlight so it will be recorded. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So you have a thickness to the mouth of the pot where you see the inside like only so much, only the base. And then you have the outside of the lip, which you see wholly. And then the inside back, you will see only the thickness. So it's much lower. And the outside continues and becomes the top of the lip. Right? So this is the top, and the folded part is on the other side of this line. This part is the inside, but you don't see this edge on the back. You only see the edge on the, which is actually the top over here. And then you have the folded lip over here. And then of course you have the pot. Now again for the pot, this line will come somewhere like this and then turn inward. So you have to have that little curve to show the pot. So all objects which have hollows, you can draw like this. If you're drawing a bowl, for example, you start off with an oval and you draw this. But when you want to make it three-dimensional, you break this up. You make a sleeping C shape for the front, and then you make a C shape that goes around it, almost hugging it like this. And that becomes the walls of the bowl. And if you want to draw maybe a strip or just like a ring, it's still the same thing. You draw the oval, you draw how flat you want to make the ring, and you will, suppose you want to make a thin ring also. Notice how I'm not making this on both sides. Here I made it because that is the edge. If I make an edge, that means maybe I can make something like this over here. And this will also probably then have edge. So this also can look like a ring. Now, if I want this to look three-dimensional, I have to shade the inside because I can't show the base like I can show over here. The inside hollow, I can't show it over here, so I have to shade it. Then it will look like it's hollow.
Fine.
And what are the other things you can do? Yeah, maybe I'll make it slightly bigger. A magnified ring, for example. This is the edge. This is our highlight. This is the inside edge. And I will have all sorts of shapes like what we've drawn for our shiny objects. And this will become, suddenly it'll look like a metallic thing. Okay. Do you see that now in the pots? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So,
Okay.
Swali, you're going to put an alarm for next Wednesday.
Yes, for sure.
She needs
Unless I'm traveling.
Cool. Okay,
Cool.
so I'll catch you next week. Bye.
See you.
next week. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.